Welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast. This is Kevin White, Deputy AD at Clemson University. My thoughts on leadership. We help establish the vision of the organization. As a leader, we try to embed a sense of purpose into the heart and soul of each employee, inspiring them to internalize their purpose and their role and responsibility to our organization. I strive to empower people to walk with me together as a team instead of behind me. Being a part of the NCAA Leadership Institute allowed me to understand who I was as a leader and also to further develop my skills at bringing people together to accomplish a shared set of goals. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed the episode.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown, and welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast, where we highlight executive and organizational leadership. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at 1Q Leadership. I'm joined, as I usually am, by Sean Frazier. Frazier is the Vice President of Athletics at Northern Illinois. Greetings, Sean. Thanks for having you on again.
Well, my brother, we're here again, right?
Let's do
Convention time, right?
Convention time, right? Usually I have you on either A, when there's been a revelation in your brain about somebody asked you a question and it made you think about something, or B, you got a big idea about something that's going on in college athletics. So I guess the question I have for you right off the bat is, what's on your mind?
Yes, good opening, softball. Hopefully I don't flub it. Was a couple of things, right? I think at the end of the day, with all the different moving pieces, first off, let's give props to Ward Manuel winning the national championship at Michigan as athletic director, Jim Harbaugh. A lot of doubters, a lot of haters, a lot of whatever, but in our business, when you're able to do that at that level, it's pretty significant. So interesting about Ward, and I was at the game, he's a close friend, I love his family, he's done a great job. But, they give, like actors like the EGOT, right? Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, all of these particular Tony Award. So they call it the EGOT. Well, Ward has an EGOT relative to college athletics. He's got a national championship in men's basketball. He's got a national championship in women's basketball. And now he has a national championship in football. Okay. So there's not very people sitting in the chair that have that. So I want to shout out to him and let him know, hey, my brother, God bless you. You did it. It was great to see it, and you are the EGOT of college athletics as an athletic administrator. You deserve all those accolades, as well as Michigan. So he's got that. So I want to put that one out there. The other one here, the other one is this transfer portal. There's a lot going on, and having gone to the bowl, we're fortunate enough to make a bowl, win a bowl. But, the transfer portal, the way, folks can opt in, opt out, all these different situations is troubling, right? I know we have bellyached about it. We are the ones who created the transfer portal, we being a member institution of the NCAA, the NCAA enforcement, all the stuff that goes along with that. But we've got to make sure that we adjust what we have done, because it's not only is it bad, it is troubling for the young men and women who have to deal with said system. And I say that, we're preparing for bowl prep in December, and we've had a few kids opt out, opt into the portal, and then opt out of the game. And principally, it was because, at least this is what they have told us, is that the institution that they were going to told them that, yeah, we don't want you to play in the bowl game. Now, it's almost like the same situation where kids are opt out of bowl games because they have pro expectations. But because of that, it creates all kind of locker room issues. It creates all kind of other things. And some of these individuals were clandestinely contacted through third-party NIL agencies and third-party process. And it's just one of those things where it just becomes a real issue with stability of one's program, because once one person opt outs, it's you're a former player, you're in the locker room, oh, so and so opt out, okay, what did he get, what was the issue? It creates a lack of focus about what's going on, and it really takes away from the game as we see. So ultimately it is what it is. It's a problem, we have to fix it. And it's been really pervasive, and we've heard the belly aching from coaches, from administrators, to everybody else. So it's time to fix the thing. It's just time to fix it. So that's a big one. That's a big issue there. you want to reflect on that before I go
Yeah,
into the next one?
so this kid that opted out going into the portal, had they already like signed him to the school, or did he opt out before he was settled into where he was going to play? Or
Yeah, so basically what was told to them is that, you know, you jump in the portal, we've appraised your value for said institution. If you do that, we will give you X dollars. And then the institution, once they got involved, said, yeah, we want you to come right away to our campus. And by the way, we don't want you to play in the bowl.
so this is prior to anything. These are the stipulations.
Yeah,
Don't
so
play in the ball. We assess you at this value. Go into the portal,
Yep.
and then we'll bring you on.
that is correct. And then the other part of that is that based on rules, you know, their inability to have an official visit to their campus, individual will have to pay their own way to the campus on as well, with no signing of paperwork or anything. And this is even before asking to go into the portal. All this stuff has happened, so you're legally or NCAA rule wise already on a roster. So there's a go-between between the institution that you would end up at, and as well as the institution that you're currently at. So all this is so clandestine. It's really more that we got to clean it up, because having that much exposure really reeks of free agency in the NFL, talks about all these things, and we're trying to talk about college athletics in the same vein. Now, I'm not going to bellyache about that process, because that's the world that we live in. But it's good to be able to be transparent that this is going on, and we've got to use mechanisms in place to fix that, because at the end of the day, what if this stuff was not legit and you did not get the money that you were promised, or you opted out of the bowl game, you opted out of a current scholarship situation, and then at the end of the rainbow, you got none of that.
That's what I'm worried. That's what I was wondering about. So all these stipulations, you got to travel on your own here. We value it this much. You got to opt out. So basically, check out from your teammates.
Yep.
Come visit here. And so what if he got there and they said, we don't like the way your left foot looks, so we're not going to sign you. So now he ruined the opportunity he had, and he's just out there really.
Yeah, and again,
say if that was the situation.
Yeah, and I don't have one to give you, but my colleagues have told me those horror stories, or the money wasn't what they initially, they since now done another assessment, and yeah, maybe it wasn't 150, it was really 25,000.
Yeah.
So you did all that, but unfortunately you can't go back or whatever, and now you're in this situation. I just think that I don't want to bellyache the fact that this is happening, because it's happening. We're in the situation. We do need to get a control of it. I think the best way in this discussion is we have to get that under control and regulate that and hold people accountable for that, because that's where it destroys the game. And quite frankly, it's hurting student athletes that are not getting what they are, quite frankly, been committed to. So those, we had another one the same way. The person, opted out, and then that individual was stolen from the institution that they originally that they were going to commit it to. So it was like a double steal type scenario.
Let me pose a question to you. I'm gonna give you an analogy, and I think I know what the difference is in the analogy. Similar to if a search firm called a football coach clandestine, so the school doesn't know, or called an athletic director, hey, you might be interested in this. I mean, this is what this third party is doing for these athletes. Now, it's not illegal for a football coach or athletic director, but right now the rules say, hey, these third parties shouldn't be contacting somebody who's already on a roster, right? But how different is that, other than the fact that it's, you know what I mean?
Well, you're right. It's a really good analogy. And I think that's why the transfer portal exists, because people were saying, well, coaches can leave, ADs can leave, presidents can leave. Why can't I leave? Right. So I agree with that. What I don't agree with is the function of not having something in writing, something that was secure, something that was real prior to the actual opting out of or putting themselves in the portal. Because in some cases, in some places, as soon as you put yourself in the portal, you are done, because that coach at that institution is saying, well, I got to go get somebody to replace him, and there's no room to come back. Now, that all changes when you have star players. Okay, you go out and test the market, it's not there. You want to come back? I still got your scholarship. Yeah, but the reality is that that part is broken because it creates so much of a issue in the locker room because the players are saying, well, you just left me. You know how players are, if you played and all of a sudden you just took another deal, or, you left me, obviously you're not committed to me or the brotherhood here or the team, especially when you go to a bowl game. You want your best going into that bowl game. So I think ultimately I'm just asking for us to regulate, fix it, hold accountable. I'm not asking that we should do anything more than that because it's going to exist when you have free enterprise, or this is the American way. I don't think I'm going to begrudge the folks taking the money, especially if the money is real and this is a real legit situation. So I think that's a concern and one that we definitely have to pay attention to moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. I'll say one more thing. I think you definitely need to have some kind of processes in place. You want to take the clandestineness out of it, right?
Absolutely.
Because you got to protect the student athlete.
Absolutely.
I do think that over the years, though, the problem in the locker room that you and I see is probably based on the perspective that we have in our experiences. Because after a while, all the student athletes, or the football players specifically, will probably operate like this. And they talking to their guy, yeah, man,
I'm out.
Clemson's talking, but I got to get.
That's
and
right.
They all understand, you know
That's
what I
right.
mean? Over time, that will probably be the case. And that locker room dynamic that we know that has been traditional in a locker room dynamic and a team may be evolving along with everything else we see in college athletics. I wonder about what else you're thinking about, because we see, we're going to 12 teams in the CFP. The games we see being played are exciting, especially this past year. I don't know if we're out doing volleyball. Everybody's watching volleyball.
That's right.
But the games you see are exciting. And when you start going to 12 teams, you hear people out in the world belittling bowl games.
Yeah.
Saying stuff like, man, nobody wants to play a bowl game anyway. And I'm like, bro, at Michigan State, in that Citrus Bowl to beat Steve Spurrier and the Florida Gators, that ring is what I wear with. That's the only team I've been on where we finished the season and won something, right?
Yep.
The other couple years and in high school, we lost in the playoffs, and I take that as pride. You know what I mean? So I wonder about your thoughts on that, because I tend to think bowl games are valuable, and that's, again, 25 years ago, player, but I think it's valuable.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. The only ones that say saying they're not valuable are the individuals who have never played in one, or have never coached in one, or has not been affiliated with one. As a former player, my brother, just like what we talk about, I value every one of those bowl games that I've been involved with, and cherish the time as a coach as well as an administrator, that they mean something to the kids. And the answer is yes. And the data points tell me the truth here, because the reality is that our bowl game ESPN ranking or rating was 1.5 million. Our championship of the MAC was 1.2 million. So that already tells you that somebody's watching. Okay, and I'm not saying that our MAC championship wasn't heavily viewed or important. It's just saying that bowl games matter because they offer you a different perspective, an opportunity
Different
for a championship, different team, and we want to finish up strong, and they are important. So to your point, you're right. I would say take it to the next level here. We know it's going to 12 teams. We know that bowl games, and especially in the time slots, are extremely important, and playing meaningful games in the month of December. Okay. I've always been double down on having a championship experience. A group of five, talked a little about that. Got hammered for the suggestion of having a group of five playoff, but it was no different than an FBS playoff, which they do a fantastic job with the NCAA. It's having a meaningful experience, conference championships, taking a conference champion and competing for a national championship. Why wouldn't I want to advocate that for my institution, for my kids, for my program? I would say there's going to be meaningful games outside of the 6 games, the 12 team playoff of the CFP next year. There's going to be games that people are going to say, wow, I can't wait to see that matchup. And it's going to be outside of the CFP playoff. So why wouldn't we have an NIT model situation similar to the NCAA basketball championship, where we've got teams that are not in the 64, but, they have a chance to win a championship, to compete, and to put themselves in a situation of moving forward for the following year. They came up short, whatever the issues are. So we should look at a format like the NIT model for FBS football, that when we rank the top 25, that we have places for those matchups to go instead of anointing top 25 after the national championship and thinking that, okay, they should be in the top 25. No, let's earn your spot. Let's monetize those individuals. We got all these opt-outs right now. That was a big situation with Florida State. You know, some of the excuses in that particular game against Georgia. You had your best players. They were on the sideline watching the game. You had Kirby Smart saying, you know, their team was decimated with opt-outs. It wasn't the same team. Would it have been the same outcome? I don't know. Maybe it was a little closer. I still think that, you know, Georgia had a pretty good team, and but it would have been a better game if everybody played. Well, how about we incentivize that particular game? You know, let that game be a situation where the winners got extra revenue, or they got a better NIL deal, or there was a financial component attached to it. I can tell you right now, if I'm advising a young man in the NFL and saying, yeah, you should probably opt out of said bowl game, but all of a sudden that young man is getting XYZ amount of money to the upwards to the tune of 100, 2, 3, whatever the deal is, or that program is going to receive XYZ incentives to do it, it's a different conversation. Now it becomes a situation that, you know what, I might not be able to get that if I don't play this game, and henceforth I don't know what I look like or what I look like from a draft standpoint. I got a draft grade right now, but I don't know what that's going to look like, you know, come the spring. So playing in this game is going to give me the visibility, the monetary component, the NIL, all the things that go along with that. We have the capacity to do that. We currently do that right now with the NIT model. I think we could do it even better at the FBS football level because it's so popular. It's more popular, no offense to the NIT, than the NIT process. Okay, because the championship bracket of the NCAA basketball is such larger, and this would only be outside of the 6 games that would be played. So this is a good model, and I'm not the only one that's probably thought about that. I'm probably the only one that's been very vocal about it, because I think it's important, because it could affect a school like NIU. It could affect the school like Tulane or Memphis or Toledo, because we are really committed to football. And we could see ourselves competing at that level. We have a history of playing better resource institution and beating them on a consistent basis, right? So I think that that's what I would opt into to help my program and my student athletes achieve the respect that they have earned over the years. So I think it's a great model, great idea. Love to sit around the table and have a conversation. I think that we have the bandwidth to get it done. I think the CFP could fund it and receive a lot more accolades and financials. It could be an extension to the championship. And then we can let the outcomes on the field be the ones that dictate who gets what, when they get it, and then financially, from a financial stability model.
I'll ask you a question here, because you bring up some thoughts as you were talking. With the CFP, like a lot of people, much of the angst and darts are pointed at the NCAA bringing in money. Some people are smart enough to understand and pointed at the institutions bringing in money, and it's not getting to the kids that are playing. CFP, though, and correct me if I'm wrong, the people who play in these playoff games, the schools get a disbursement or whatever. Is the argument the same? Like, is that getting down to student athletes? You see what I mean? Because what you're saying is, if they would have had this NIT type, the bottom 12, some of the disbursements get to student athletes, and now the student athletes are like, I'd rather play in this than opt out, because I don't know what's going to happen after I opt out.
Correct.
But even in the top 12, where the big money is, like, is that even getting the athlete? That's almost a conversation that I don't think I've ever heard about. Nobody's looking at the CFP and saying,
and I don't know. I don't want to speak that I don't know. I do know that those individuals with NIL deals and other types of things that we just discussed are happening. But, you know, that's what's happening right now with all these litigation issues. That's what's happening with the NCAA relative to trying to get a standardized, you know, a national NIL deal. Folks want to have access and want the answer about why this multimedia rights money, or all this big time money that's kind of been televised, that these different conferences are getting, why is that not getting to the student athlete? So ultimately it becomes this contentious situation. I think some institutions have done a great job with making sure that the resources through NIL are getting to certain players, but that's what, 10%, 12% of the big time players. I think that folks are wanting better transparency on, are we doing right by the players? very similar to the NFL situation. So I'm not here to advocate either way because I'm kind of caught in that vortex. But I do agree that we have the potential, if it's done right, to monetize and do different things on a larger scale than just the 1%. And I think that is why the NCAA's been in litigation from day one. That's why we're looking for an antitrust carve out or exemption, trying to get an NIL thing passed. All of these complex strategic things are happening because of the wealth that has been broadcast by these multi-million-dollar media deals that I do believe are not going to be sustainable. I think they're going to cut off. I think they're not going to be consistent. That's what I believe. And I think that we need to put ourselves in a position where we can help ourselves do things like what I talked about, having an NIT-like model that's more inclusive than just the top, 6 games or the top 12 institutions is one way. And then the other way is to make sure that we have a standardized procedure that everyone's operating on and not just the chosen few.
Yeah, it is the... My mind is going now, Frazier.
That's all right.
For the schools that are in conferences that have these big media deals, I imagine that's a significant source of revenue for each school, right?
Yeah.
So conferences. And then CFP, which has its own media deal. And I don't know if that's a significant source of revenue for people who participate in the college football class.
I do not know the
We don't know the answer to that. But it seems to me that some of these lawsuits aren't pointed at the right people. If I start thinking about that, if the money's coming, if Big 12 and Big 10 and all these other conferences, and I'm an advocate for all the conferences, and CFP, they're the ones making these media right deals, but everybody's going after the NCAA. Like if money's coming in from these media right deals, CFP, and we're playing in this, and everybody's happy in big game, and the close games win at the last second, and national championship. Michigan, of course, I'm not a Michigan guy, I'm a state guy, but Michigan wins, right?
I got you.
I've never heard the conversation where people talk about going after them specifically because a lot of money's coming in, and is that the money that people are saying should get to the student athlete? Even this NIT, if you build that for the bottom 12, for the lack of a better, that money's coming from CFP, advertising, media rights. Then the top 12, probably the kids playing in those need to be getting that money too. Now say they probably are getting NAI deals because they're the cream of the crop.
So let me clear it up. A CFP championship is that's the championship, right? Yeah. They own, operate, what have you. Money is given to those participants.
Okay, so you're saying the NIT would be like the NCAA, almost like you're saying
but I could see how this NIT format being controlled by how the CFP does its current, because you don't want to have two different separate entities.
Yeah.
You want to have just like the NCAA has NIT, and before that NIT was separate, and then NIT was brought underneath it. So you want to have that because you already have the model and ranking. You don't have to do a whole hell of a lot of extra work. You just need to make sure that the participants in the process and the things like the monetizing and all that. But here's the deal. So that's one batch of money that is dispersed to the conferences that are participate in the CFP. Then the other batch of money that we hear about all the time is about the individual conferences, like the Big Ten, SEC,
their own media rights
deal. So there's these different pots of money based on, conference play, non-conference play, and the like. But you're right, as far as how that money is disseminated to set players is the big pink elephant in the room. Okay. And, how, one would argue as an AD, I have an athletic department. So how I disperse money is making sure that mental health, academics, all of the things that make the quality of experience. So that's where the money I receive go to that experience. Now, my critics would say, well, no, you should be giving some of that money that you're making on the backs of those particular athletes that do that. But then there's an equity issue. Are we going to be compliant when it comes to Title IX, gender equity? Are we going to balance the things across the board? So there's so many different pieces that's associated with this, and you really need to think it out. what I've brought up about the NIT is that this is a model that we currently do in another space, and we can operationalize that. And then we need to go into the details on how it's disseminated to help us with the opt-outs of the student athletes, with the financial, being more sustainable in our practices. So again, these are more ideas and more creative solutions to solve our own problems.
Yeah, you're right. And then those lawsuits aren't necessarily about disbursements. It's about not being able to, like back in the 80s, not being able to earn
That's right.
because of rules.
That's right.
So it's not as cut and dry.
Make money off your name, image, and likeness. Yeah,
because
exactly
the rules
right.
say I can't. So that's problematic. I got it. You think about the NCAA's leader. You think about doing a big money deal they just did, and you know there are things that people say this antitrust exemption would solve some of the issues or make things a lot easier to build policy around, I guess. Educate me on some of that in terms of...
Yeah, so, we're up to our earlobes, right? In litigation, right? Lawsuits. Every 5 minutes there's some type of ruling that people are talking about on, student athletes being employees, monetizing their name, image, and likeness, the ability to be in the free market space, the American way of life, right? Free enterprise. I just think that we're at a stage now where, the tube of what is it? The toothpaste is out of the tube, and I don't know if you've ever tried to put toothpaste back in the tube. It's almost impossible, right? So I just think that those days are gone. So what we got to do now is operationalize the things that are here and do it to the best of our ability, instead of always resorting to the courtroom to solve our issue. I do believe that we need to have congressional intervention, and that our leadership, specifically President Baker, has to be able to facilitate that action. Waiting for a antitrust carve out, I don't believe is the right way. I think we need a win, and I think the win is agreeing, or to you can even agree to disagree. I don't care what you do, but getting together and getting a national standard across all 50 states. And then we need to make a bit of an adjustment on this legal issue. Looking for this antitrust piece of it is having the ability to do what we need to do, and then have it carve out so you can't sue us, right? Because again, everybody's very litigious. Folks are going to sue if they feel like they're done wrong. That's also the American way. As my wife, being an attorney, can also attest to. So what I believe is that we've got to get control of the runaway train. The runaway train is running. It's on the tracks, but at the end of the day, we really don't have someone steering. We just have a runaway train, and we keep on stepping on landmines and still not able to solve the critical issue of overall student athlete welfare and well-being. And we've got folks making huge amounts of money in different places, and people, at least American people who are consumers of the product that is college athletics, are saying, why can't they figure that out? Why is this such a big issue? Pay the people, do the thing. So just without action, we have reaction, which is basically people saying that our leadership has failed us. So I'm a part of the problem, as a practitioner, as an AD, and I would love to get us, finally getting things done, executing things now, instead of having them kind of just happen and us reacting to it.
Yeah, that reaction is definitely a problem. Last question, Sean, before we wrap for this Frazier Ty Brown session that we have once or twice a year. I wonder about a positive outlook on, you go into the rest of the academic year, you think about the next couple of years coming up. What do you see that actually makes you happy about?
Yeah, it's a great question. I had to really soul search myself. I lost my dad. I don't know if you knew that.
And I didn't.
About a month ago.
Been through it, and I'm sorry that you had to go through that.
No, I appreciate you. It helped me, though. The reason I mentioned it helped me self-reflect about what's important in my life. Obviously, family is always that. Just my family, really knowing what I mean to them and what my dad meant to me, and just my maturation process. He was career military, fought for this country, was proud, instilled a patience and humility. He always told me never to compromise standards, and I live by that. So what I'm most optimistic about is the fact that we have young people that are just great leaders. What I'm optimistic about the most is that we are graduating, again, at a very high level, and they are taking us to the next level of understanding. And I'm really humbled by the fact that athletics as a tool of education is still undefeated. Okay? Employers want folks that work with teams and that are competitive and that understand the pressures and really defy the odds. And that story never, ever gets old. And then the access to higher education. In America, you have to pay for higher education. I might have a fundamental problem with that, but athletics provides a tool for that, gives you an opportunity to gain higher education, which is essential to your human development and for the passage of citizenship. So that is what I'm optimistic about, is the leadership, the ability to gain higher education, the ability to lead by example. So those things give me pep in my step and keep me going. After all the minutia that we were talking about, those things fundamentally drive who I am. And I'm really humbled to be in my position to do that.
To be a part of that and influence that at a high level. Well, Frazier, I appreciate every time we sit down and talk, and I really hope the people listening appreciate you joining us here on the One Question Leadership Podcast.
I keep on doing it, brother. This has been a great conversation, very organic. And I don't know why you always get stuff out of me. I think it's that suave way of just kind of rolling it out there. So you've got more from me than, my goodness, from a lot of folks. So I appreciate you do what you do. Keep on doing it.
Yes, sir. That was Sean Frazier. He's the Vice President of Athletics at Northern Illinois. And of course, I am Ty Brown with One Question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of the One Question Leadership Podcast is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.